class, welcome to another video lecture. This is for week 6 assignment number 1, chemical equilibrium notes. So before watching this video, you need access to our paper fill in the blank notes that are posted on Neo. So let me show you real quick what those look like. There are these here, and you can have them in Google Docs and you can type in the blanks. You could print it out and write in the blanks, or you can upload the PDF to Notability and just write the words in. But you'll want to make sure you have access to these because we're going to be using these concepts actually for 2 weeks. So you'll want to make sure you have access to those. So let me pull up our chemical equilibrium notes. I'm just going to go through the slides here while you fill it in. Hopefully some of the visuals in these help you understand the concepts a little better. So our guiding question is, how can we make more products when a chemical reaction can go backwards? So it's a new concept that we're learning about because this idea of a chemical reaction going backwards, that's very different. So section 1 is reversible reactions. Can chemical reactions go backwards? Yes, but only some. Most reactions can't. A certain special type of reactions are called reversible reactions. And we use a different type of arrow to indicate this. So instead of our reactants with a single arrow to products, which is all of the chemical reactions we've seen up until now, these types of reactions have this reversible arrow. So it tells us right away, oh, we're dealing with a reversible reaction, not a standard chemical reaction. Whereas a standard chemical reaction, where we have this single arrow, we begin with all reactants and no products. We have just our reactants. We combine our reactants, they collide with each other, transform into products. We talked about reaction rate last week and how to increase these collisions to make that happen faster. When one reactant is completely used up, the reaction stops. We end with our products. We have all products, and maybe we'll have a leftover reactant, but for the most part, this is what we get. We start with our reactants. After they've had a chance to completely collide, we end up with all products, and that's it. We're done. In a reversible reaction, this new type of reaction, we still begin with all reactants and no products. The reactants then collide with each other to form products, same as before, but this is where it's different. The rate, so that's how fast, the rate at which reactants transform into products, so how fast this is happening, where we're making products, will begin to slow down. It decreases over time as we have less reactants. So the more reactants that get transformed into products, the slower the process begins to happen. That makes sense. We know that a higher concentration increases reaction rate. So if we have fewer reactants, if we have a lower concentration, our reaction is going to slow down. At this point, some of the products, whoa, this is weird. Some of the products will begin to revert back into reactants. So once our reaction rate slows and we slow down how fast we're transforming products, in a reversible reaction, we're then going to start to remake reactants as well. That reaction will start to go backwards. This process ends with some reactants and some products that are constantly being made. So this end result of an equilibrium of this reversible reaction is that we have some reactants and some products. We don't have all products like we did in a standard chemical reaction. So what we're going to talk about now is how we know when that's happening and how it's different for the different reversible reactions. So important note here, chemical equilibrium is what's called dynamic. So that means when we look at the reaction, it looks something like this. It looks like nothing's happening. It looks like we've just got some pink something here, some blue something here. But the molecules are still rearranging to form reactants and products. They're still rearranging. Here's kind of a GIF of what's happening. They're still making products. They're still making reactants. But that process is happening at the same rate, so we don't actually see any changes happening. Chemical equilibrium, the phrase chemical equilibrium, is the point in a reaction, a reversible reaction, where the products and the reactants are being made at the same rate. So just as we're making a certain amount of products, we're making the same amount of reactants, so we don't see any visible changes. Once a reaction reaches this point where the rate of making products and making reactants is the same, the overall concentration of the reactants and products doesn't change. That's why we don't see any changes happening, because the overall amounts aren't changing, even if they're constantly being formed. These concentrations are not likely to be 50% reactants and 50% products. So the point of chemical equilibrium does not mean that I have half products and half reactants. That's not how it works. There's a different point in my percentage of reactants and products for each reversible reaction. I'll show you a visual of that in just a second. Chemical equilibrium is dynamic because products and reactants are still being made, so it's not static, it's dynamic, it's still changing, but it's just happening at the same rate, so the overall concentrations remain the same. The equilibrium balance point, so this point of we've reached equilibrium, we've reached chemical equilibrium, is known as K, the letter K, capital K. That's what that point is. And K can be calculated. So we can calculate K by dividing the concentration of products over reactants. And K is a value that for each reversible reaction, you can Google. You can look up at room temperature, what is K for that particular reaction? If you look it up and K is greater than 1, then it means that the natural equilibrium position has a higher concentration of products. So you can kind of see that in the visual here. If K is greater than 1, it means that when that particular reaction is at equilibrium, there are more products than reactants. If K is less than 1, so we Google a reaction and it tells us that K is 0.5. That means the natural equilibrium position has a higher concentration of reactants. So when our reaction, we combine it, we let it react and reach chemical equilibrium where we no longer see changes. That means there's more reactants in that reaction vessel than products. Here's a visual. I like visuals. So here's the two graphs. Our difference here is this is if K is greater than 1. This is K is less than 1. Remember, K is just equilibrium. That's the numerical value for equilibrium. So here's concentration. So you can tell if it's at the top. In this case, we have more products and fewer reactants. So when our reaction starts, right, we start with all reactants. We combine the reactants, we let the reaction run, and once we get this flat line, it means that we're forming products and reactants at the same rate. We've reached equilibrium. In this case, when this happens, when we've reached equilibrium, we have a lot more products than reactants. That's why K is greater than 1, because if we divide it, we have more products over reactants. The reverse is true for here. So if we start with all products, or we start with all reactants, and we let the reaction go, and then it flatlines, so we have chemical equilibrium, we're making our reactants and products at the same rate. This tells us, oh, we have higher concentration of reactants than products. And this might look different. It might be that this reaction is a different color than this reaction. It might be that this reaction is lighter or darker than this reaction. So we might see visible differences, but once we've hit equilibrium, we're not gonna see any changes actually happening because the concentrations are remaining the same. When rates flatten, the reaction has reached equilibrium. So you don't have these graphs in your notes. I just thought they were really helpful to kind of try to understand what's happening. Where we start with all reactants, but instead of ending with all products, like a standard chemical reaction, in a reversible reaction, we end wherever we are forming at the same rate, wherever this kind of line flattens out here. Now let's talk about how to shift this. So this is called Le Chatelier's principle. Le Chatelier's principle is named after the guy who invented it, Le Chatelier. And a lot of my students really like this concept. Here's why this concept is great. So it says when a system at equilibrium is stressed, the system will shift to make more reactants or products so as to undo the stress. So this principle, we don't have to do any math, we don't have to do any calculations, we're just recognizing patterns. That's why it's a very nice principle. So I wanted to illustrate it. So in this GIF here, we had a system at equilibrium. We added more reactants. So what happens is we stressed it. It's going to shift to undo that stress. So we added more reactants. It shifted to make more products to try to undo it. Let's look at this one. In this case, we added more products. We stressed it by adding more products. So what's going to happen is the reaction is going to make more reactants to try to undo it. It's going to try to undo it. So we have a table that's going to summarize all of this for us. So here's our table. There's the first one. So if we stressed it by increasing the concentration of a substance. So let's say we have reactants to products. Reactants to products. We add more reactants, it's going to make more products. We add more products, it's going to make more reactants. So the shift here is away from it. So we add reactants, it shifts away to make products. If we add products, we shift away from products to make more reactants. The reason why this happens is because that extra concentration that we just added needs to be used up. It needs to reestablish its equilibrium. If we decrease the concentration, we're going to see the opposite shift. So if we have our reactants and products and we remove some reactants, we're going to see a shift toward reactants. We're going to make more reactants to try to make up for that. If we lose some products, we're going to shift to make more products to try to make up for what was lost. So we need to produce more of that substance to make up for what was removed. All this principle is we messed up our equilibrium. Now we need to try to reestablish it. The next two are about temperature. So if we increase the temperature, we heat it up, this is a little more complicated because it depends on where the energy is, both if we increase and decrease the temperature. So remember, last week, we learned that we can write the E in a chemical reaction equation. So depending on where the E is, we're going to see the same type of shift that we do here. So let's say that we have an endothermic reaction where my E is a reactant. Well, if my E is a reactant and we add more E, we add more heat or temperature increases, then we're going to see a shift toward the products because we added another reactant. We can think of energy as a reactant in an endothermic reaction. The opposite is also true. If my energy is a product because it's exothermic, if I add more energy to an exothermic reaction, I'm going to see the shift to make more reactants. Because I added more product, it's going to shift away to make more reactants. We're going to get more practice with this. This is something that's a complicated system, and all of live class on Wednesday, Thursday this week is we're going to see this in action. We're going to test it out on a couple of reactions to see what those shifts actually look like. So hopefully this table is helpful. We increase the temperature, it goes away from the heater energy. If we decrease it, it goes towards it. So you can see these exact same patterns. We increase something, it goes away. We decrease something, it goes towards. We increase something, it goes away. We decrease something, it goes towards. And then the Y over here hopefully is also helpful. So I wanted to give you just a written example before we get to our real examples. So it says, it means where the E is really matters. So we learned that we could add the energy E as endo or exothermic last week. We're going to kind of see the application of this for reversible reactions. So here's an example of a reversible reaction. This is called the Haber process. This is how we make ammonia. Ammonia is something that's really, really necessary for things like fertilizers. So this is a really important reaction that a lot of industry will make. And it's reversible. So we want to make sure that we can make the most ammonia. So the question is, well, should we heat it up or should we cool it down? Which one's going to give us more product? We don't know if we don't have the E. If the E is a reactant, so if the E was on this side of the equation, then heating it up would cause it to shift over here and make more product. That'd be a good thing. But if E is over here, if it's exothermic, then heating it up is going to do the opposite. It's going to make more reactants instead. So what we're going to investigate during live class is trying to figure out where to put the E if we don't know. And if we do know where the E is, how it's going to affect whether or not we can make more product. That's what we're going for here. And then just a quick final note here, changing the temperature is the only thing that can change K. So all of these other shifts, we're just going to reestablish K. We mess it up, that same value for K is going to reestablish with the new concentrations. When you change the temperature, we can actually change what that value is. The K at 100 degrees Celsius is going to be different than the K at 0 degrees Celsius. So that's the equilibrium constant, remember. Changing concentration, so adding more reactant or more product or taking away reactant or product isn't going to change this. And we're going to continue to explore all of this, both this and next week, but hopefully this gives you a little bit more background for what was going on. At this point, pause the video, work on those practice problems, and I'll see you back here in a second to go over the answers. You back? Okay. Here's our answers. Question 1, explain the difference between the single arrow and the double arrow as they relate to chemical reactions. So my answer here, of course yours might vary, is a single arrow indicates a standard chemical reaction where reactants can only make products. That's it. A double arrow indicates a reversible chemical reaction where the reaction can go forward to make products or it can go backward to make reactants. Question 2, what is the difference between how we end in a standard chemical reaction and how we end in a reversible chemical reaction? So the end of a standard chemical reaction is when we use up the reactants, we make products. We end with products. In a reversible chemical reaction, we end at equilibrium. We end when we have reached our K, when we've taken our reactants and our products and we've flatlined. We're now making our reactants and products at the same rate. We might have a lot of products. We might have a lot of reactants. It depends on the reaction. It depends if K is greater than or less than 1. The end is that we are making reactants and products at the same rate for a reversible reaction. Question 3 was a bunch of true-false questions. So at equilibrium, both reactants and products are present. Correct, true. At equilibrium, the concentration of reactants and products must be the same. That's not true. It doesn't have to be 50%, 50%. Any reaction can reach equilibrium. Nope. Only reversible reactions. That's that last question. Only reversible reactions can reach equilibrium. At equilibrium, the overall concentration of products and the concentration of reactants remains unchanged. That's true. So we don't know what the concentration is, but we know that the concentration has flatlined. We're making things at the same rate, so the overall concentration remains the same at equilibrium. At equilibrium, no changes at the molecular level are taking place. That's false. Equilibrium is dynamic. We're still forming reactants, we're still forming products, just at the same rate. At equilibrium, the rate that reactants and products are forming is equal. True. That's our definition of chemical equilibrium. At equilibrium, there are no visible changes in a reaction. That's true. We wouldn't see anything change. That's how we would kind of know that we've reached chemical equilibrium. And then the last one is just reiterating, only reversible reactions can reach equilibrium. I hope that was helpful. At this point, you should be ready to answer those couple of questions on NEO. And I hope that you're excited to kind of see what all this looks like. Our live class this week, Wednesday, Thursday, will take place at school in the Chem Lab. And so I'll be broadcasting on Zoom from there so we can test some of this out. We can see some of these reversible reactions. We can change their concentrations of reactants and products. We can change their temperature, and we can get a better handle on all of this and start applying it to our gas tube problem. I'll see you then.